It is December 1944. Snow covers a quiet forest on the edge of Germany. American soldiers sit in frozen foxholes, blowing warm air into their hands. Command told them this sector was safe. Nothing happens here. Then the ground shakes. Artillery shells scream out of the dark. Tanks grind through the trees. Thousands of German soldiers surge forward through fog so thick you can barely see 10 feet ahead. In minutes, a quiet winter morning turns into chaos. On the map back at headquarters, a red bulge starts punching into the Allied lines. It grows by the hour. This is not a small raid. This is Adolf Hitler's last massive gamble to change the outcome of World War II. So here is the real question. If this attack hit with total surprise, tanks, fog, and total confusion, how did America break through it? Stick around, because this is the story of how the most dangerous German attack in the West collapsed into one of Germany's biggest disasters. By late 1944, Germany was losing badly. The Allies had stormed the beaches of Normandy, pushed across France, and were creeping toward the German border. Many American soldiers thought the war might be over by Christmas. Hitler thought differently. He believed one massive surprise attack through a quiet forest region called the Ardennes could crack the Allied lines wide open, split the American and British armies apart, shock the West into panic. It was bold, it was risky, and it depended entirely on one single thing: surprise. So on a freezing morning, German tanks and soldiers slammed into thinly held American positions across the Ardennes. Snow blanketed the forests. Fog rolled through the valleys. Radios crackled with confused reports. Nobody expected an attack here. That is exactly why Hitler picked this spot. A calm, quiet stretch of map suddenly cracked open as German arrows tore through it. And for a moment, it actually worked. German units pushed forward fast. American lines bent. Some units were overrun completely. Reports flooded back to Allied headquarters, and commanders struggled to understand how big this attack really was. At first, it looked like the gamble might succeed. Hitler's plan was simple to draw but brutal to execute. Break through the American lines, split the Allied armies in two, drive all the way to the port city of Antwerp, cut off Allied supplies, force a crisis so big that the Western Allies might even ask for a separate peace. Picture Hitler shoving one giant red arrow across a map, straight for that port, while American commanders scramble to figure out what is even happening. It was a plan built to break the war open. But there was one thing Hitler could never draw on his map: the Americans standing in the way. Even as German units smashed through weak points, American soldiers refused to simply disappear. Small units held crossroads that barely showed up on any map. Combat engineers blew up bridges to slow German tanks. Soldiers piled into hasty roadblocks with whatever weapons they had. Units that were technically surrounded kept fighting instead of surrendering. None of this stopped the German advance completely, but it slowed it down. And in this kind of gamble, slowing down was everything. The German plan needed speed above all else. Every hour lost was an hour Hitler could not get back. And then the fighting turned into one of the most famous standoffs of the entire war: Bastogne. Bastogne was a small town with a huge problem for the Germans. Every major road in the region ran straight through it. If Germany wanted to keep moving west, they needed this town. American forces rushed in and dug in around Bastogne just as German troops closed in from multiple directions. Soon, the town was completely surrounded, cut off, cold, running low on ammunition, medical supplies, and food. The Germans demanded surrender. The Americans said no. Picture a small ring of American soldiers holding the center of a snowy town. while German arrows close in from every side, like a tiny island refusing to sink in the middle of a storm. Bastogne became a symbol, but holding the town was only half of the story. The Americans still had to break the trap completely. Here is the part Hitler did not want anyone to notice. His attack looked powerful on the surface, but underneath, it had serious cracks. The plan needed constant speed to keep the Allies off balance. It needed captured American fuel because Germany did not have enough of its own. It needed bad weather to stay thick, so Allied airplanes could not fly. It needed roads to stay clear and open. And it needed the Allies to panic instead of fight back. The deeper German tanks pushed into Allied territory, the more stretched their supply lines became. Picture a single German tank pulling a long rope behind it, a rope representing fuel and supplies, stretching thinner and thinner the farther it drives, until it starts to fray apart. And then, after days of gray skies and heavy fog, the weather changed. Bad weather had grounded Allied aircraft during the early days of the attack. It was one of the reasons the Germans made progress at all. But once the skies cleared, everything shifted. Picture thick gray clouds splitting apart as American planes roar into view overhead, while German trucks and tanks sit frozen and exposed on open, snowy roads. American and Allied aircraft attacked German supply columns, vehicles, and reinforcements. Suddenly, Germany was not just fighting American soldiers in snowy forests. It was fighting the full weight of the Allied war machine, from the ground and from the sky. Meanwhile, American reinforcements were already moving. General George Patton pulled his Third Army out of its current fight and turned it north, racing through brutal winter conditions to reach Bastogne. Picture American arrows swinging hard to the north, slamming into the side of the German advance like a hammer strike. This is the moment Hitler's gamble started turning into a trap for his own army. Here is the strategic problem Germany could not escape. Germany could still fight hard. Its soldiers were tough, disciplined, and desperate, but Germany could not easily replace lost fuel, lost tanks, lost experienced soldiers, or lost time. America and the Allies could absorb the shock. They could bring in reinforcements. They could repair roads. They could move fresh supplies forward. They could keep fighting day after day without running dry. Picture Germany dumping its very last pile of poker chips onto the table while America calmly opens the doors to a massive warehouse stacked behind it. The gamble did not fail all at once in one dramatic moment. It failed one delay at a time, one blown bridge, one roadblock, one empty fuel tank, one counterattack smashing into an exposed flank. Piece by piece, the gamble came apart. So, let's bring it all together. The German surprise was real, and it was terrifying. The danger was real too, a serious attempt to break the Allies apart. But American lines bent without fully breaking. Bastogne held under brutal pressure. German supply lines stretched past their limit. The weather cleared at the worst possible moment for Germany. Allied aircraft returned to the skies. American reinforcements counterattacked from the south, and Germany lost men, tanks, fuel, and time it could never get back. That is the real answer to our question. America broke through Hitler's last gamble because his plan needed absolutely everything to go right. And American resistance in the snow, in the fog, and in the surrounded towns made sure that it did not. Hitler wanted one attack to split the Allies and change the direction of the entire war. Instead, it burned through the last of Germany's strength in the West. It proved that a surprise attack alone cannot defeat an army that has depth, logistics, air power, reinforcements, and soldiers willing to hold a freezing line in the middle of a forest. The gamble failed, and Germany would never launch anything like it again. If you want more simple World War II stories explained in cartoons, subscribe to War Doodles.